Welcome to The Wanderer's Compass, a Big Blend radio travel podcast featuring Joelle, Machia, and Ryan Slough. Welcome, everyone. It is part 2. This is the second episode of The Wanderer's Compass, and Ryan and Joelle are here. Joelle had an amazing time at the Presidio in San Francisco, and that is part of our National Park Service, and it's very cool. It's a beautiful place. Nancy and I have been there. And Ryan's going to give us a little bit of the military history, background of the Presidio. It's done so many things. It's also part of Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Joelle had good food. She stayed at wonderful places, got to enjoy those amazing views of the Golden Gate Bridge. I could go on, but I think that's why she is here and Ryan is here. They've got some articles out there. One is on our site, nationalparktraveling.com. There's one in the Food Wine Travel magazine through the International Food Wine Travel Rides Association. They also have one going up on their site, which is wandererscompass.com. So check out the episode notes for those links. So first on the show, Joelle, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you, Lisa. Good. And how are you?
Good. I'm ready to talk up, it's part 2. It's like weird, like to say part 2, but yeah, episode 2. We're in. And next month we're talking castles, which got us all together, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah. Well, I kind of think the Presidio is a castle,
It is amazing. I absolutely was blown away. And I think what surprised me the most about the Presidio is I've been to San Francisco a lot. I'm based in Seattle. So I've been there probably a dozen times over, several decades. And, I knew of the Presidio and I've driven by it a lot, but I had never actually gone in and explored it. And the opportunity came up when I had attended at the International Media Marketplace in New York City in January. And one of the organizations there that had a table was the Presidio. And since it was close, I thought, I'll go talk to them. And I did, and was floored to hear all they had to tell me. After I got back, they wrote back to me and said, hey, we'd love to have you come visit. And that's how I landed up being there. And it's a short flight from Seattle, so I just popped down there. Regretfully, Ryan had just been on the West Coast for a big meeting, so he couldn't attend. But I was able to, on my own, truly enjoy it. And I think I was surprised how close it is. It is part of San Francisco. It's a national park, but it is also within feet. You can walk from the Marina District to the Cow Hollow area. It's a 10, 15-minute walk. It's right near the Palace of the Fine Arts, which is stunning in its own right. And when I first got there, I spent 2 days in San Francisco just wandering in San Francisco. And then it was time to move over to the Presidio, and it was a couple-minute drive. I was just like, oh, wow, I'm here. And you go from this busy, vibrant, beautiful city to this stunning location. And you're like, did I really just leave the city and now I'm in this national park? And again, the Golden Gate Recreation Area, it just blew me away. And the first stop, of course, always has to be at the visitor center, which is, since it's a national park, they have an amazing visitor center. So immediately talked to the rangers that were there and got so much information about its history, and they have some wonderful displays and touch screens. So I really started at a good point and was like, I am only here 2.5 days, and I don't know how I'm going to get to see this all. There's so much to do there, and to really relax at the same time and feel part of it. So it really was interesting from my perspective, because again, all these years, I really didn't know this amazing place was just feet away where I had been so many times.
It's beautiful. We were there in 2014, and we met with the superintendent of the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail. And this is, I've talked about this on a show with you guys before, but I'm passionate about this history. I don't know what it is. I feel like I have ancestors that did this route from Mexico with Juan Bautista de Anza. His father was a conquistador Spanish conquistador who, was supposed to bring all these people up, and the Spanish were taking over at the time. But wait a minute, let me stop. Ryan's here. He knows more about this kind of stuff more than me. But there was a lot going on in the Bay Area and around the corner, and I think it was in the 1500s. Now, Ryan's going to have to help me on this. But we had Sir Francis Drake, who tried to take over California for the Queen. And then he got the Spanish mad. I think this is how it goes. I got to go back in my files on this. But like if you go across the, across the water, across the bay, you'll find these giant sculptures of Sir Francis Drake, who was not the nicest person. And he thought he could take over everything, but the Spanish kept going, no, you can't. Am I getting any of this right, Ryan? I don't know if get into that kind of history like I do, but like I do mess it up.
Well, I didn't dive crazy into the history before it really became the site that it is, pre construction and all that. But I mean, it dates to our country before California was part of our country. Yeah, so 1776. So it established with New Spain, and that was the kind of the start of it, everything, and it's got a long history because it's like a lot of places in Europe. It's exchanged hands a lot. It went from that to it was passed to the Mexicans, in Mexico, and they that was what I think 1820, and from there it then finally made it to us to 1848, and from there it's become it's moved in priority of different things of what it's done. It's based in the National Guard there and other units and hospitals and different things, and it's been involved in multiple military actions and stuff throughout, where either people came there or were stationed there for whatever duties, or departed from there, and then unfortunately there's some of the bad sides of the history there, where during World War II they had the internment camps there for I think it was the Japanese nationals, in America, that they kind of rounded up as a safety precaution thing, which is, nowadays you think about it, it's like, I mean, it's awful that happened, but at the same time, it's one of those, you seem like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing. It's like, well, if we don't, something could happen. And with that, something to that scale, it's just, you gotta go with what you think's best, and it may not have been the best, but we moved on from it, and but yeah, it's got a lot of history. It was surprising reading up on a lot of it. I think it's just like, oh, okay, it's post, and that's what it was. But to see that it dates all the way back from there, and then and it's basically been in multiple hands, and to what it is today, to become this beautiful area. I mean, when we were there last year, I'm pretty jealous that I missed that, because we drove through, we went up to the Golden Gate, kind of welcome center there, and we kind of walked around a teeny bit, and I saw the forts on the northern tip there, and a lot of things. And I'm like, man, like we need to go see that. And I see all these beautiful brick and other buildings from, the roadways, and seeing like that classic military looking station, duty houses or whatever. And I love that kind of architecture. If it's, I don't know, a nostalgia thing, when I go, I see a movie, or I go to a different base somewhere, and I walk through that old center of the base, where it's the old, sergeant majors, or the commander's post, and like the high up ranking people, and down the line of these houses and stuff. And it's kind of the nostalgia thing, because again, we don't have that super old history. So when you get to have something like this, I mean, that's basically the oldest history we have right there. It's like from,
pre-America,
before it was even ours. So it's pretty cool that we have something like that, and that there's been a huge effort to, not just share, that information and that history, but to preserve it, because again, we don't have a lot of it, and it's a unique site, because it's, it's self-sustaining. They every dime they make, from all the different things that's available there, pays for it. So, it's not this, thing that they have to figure out budgeting and this and that. It's like, it's a self-sustaining, place. And I wish there they could figure out more places like that in the U.S. to where, people can, would want to come and share that history and learn and enjoy not only the structures and the history, but the nature around it and keep that for the next generation.
Well, it's really interesting you talk about the sustaining part of it. So it's part of the National Park Service, but it's also housing. It's, people live there and, there's hotels and there's museums. And so Joelle got to have all those wonderful experiences, but it kind of reminds me of how our national heritage areas became, because the heritage areas are the National Park Service, so part of the National Park Service funding. So the funding of the National Park Service. So when we buy a pass to go into a park, if you buy your pass at the park, a National Park Service, so it could be a historical monument, it could be it could be a national seashore that you have just up the road at Point Reyes National Seashore from I really highly recommend people do both when they go. And there's a beautiful drive. It's all part of Golden Gate recreation area. But wherever you go, when you buy your pass to go in, that money, if you buy it there at the park, that money goes into that specific park. If you buy online, say we have a lifelong pass, right? And so veterans, by the way, those who serve in the military, all national park units are free for you. You just need to go get your pass online, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's a 4-grade program and anyway, sorry, but you said you brought up sustainability of National Park Service areas. And this is, this combination. So if you buy online, that money goes into the National Park Service Fund, which goes into America's general fund. And so this is where it can get kind of interesting about what happens to the money. I'm just saying. So that's part of how we ended up our tour of national park units is about securing that money. And there was a study done, I'm going to say 10 years ago, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and Forbes did it. And the study showcased, Joelle, you know about Forbes, don't you?
Yes, I do.
They did a study on the viability of our National Park Service, on the income it derives for the local economies and how sustaining is it, because our parks are always under budget. Like they're not being, they need more money into them, right? For maintenance and staff and things like that. And that's why we do what we do. But they said that if our National Park Service was actually a business instead of being our federal land, which is the ultimate protection, should be, it is more profitable than Google, which tells you how important these places are. And, you brought up this beauty of this. Most, military places are in the most beautiful places in our search.
Sometimes I've been to some.
Sometimes, but it
I don't know if you ever been to Hunter Liggett, California. It's in the middle of nothing.
Yes, I know there's some weird ones, but this whole coastal area, so I was talking about Sir Francis Drake. So this was it was 1579. He broke down and tried to claim, Nova Albion. I had to go look at my article real quick for the Queen. And he, his Golden Hind ship, which I call the Golden Hiney, broke down. But anyway, all this stuff happened. But anyway, he didn't make it, and then he went around to go do his big circumnavigation of the world. But so that was in the 1500s, and it was actually just up the road at where is Point Reyes. But you could see the sculpture just across the water. You could just swim across, the bay. There's people who have done it, but so it's a beautiful spot because it's at a port area, so there's all that water. But sustainability wise, it's cool. But I think the Presidio, I think helped start, and I'm going to have to dig into this history, the national heritage areas that we have around the country, which is a combination of, military can be involved if it's military sites. It will be different nonprofit organizations and the communities get together. So it's a shared funding thing that happens. Cane River National Heritage Area in Natchitoches, Louisiana is that way. They have byways. They help with, they are part of the fort there, which is where Saint Denis landed. And, they found this is the oldest settlement in the state of Louisiana. so they help maintain all of that and put it into this grand area that people can explore. So it's this multi-use kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like you were saying, Ryan, for the funding to be self-sustaining, and that's what it is. So it's interesting. So we're going to go to Joelle now because we got off track and it's my fault. And I'm sorry, but I have a passion for this stuff. Like it's about keeping
it's
these
a good passion
there.
to have. It's a good passion.
It's so important. And I think the Presidio really teaches us this. There's a respect there. Did you find that, Joel, when you were going around? Like there's a respect for the history. There's a respect for people's living space, the visitors, and a respect just, I don't know, an overall respect even for the gardens and everything, because there's gardens there too.
Absolutely. It was a passion more because I met with several people, the person who met with the DMO, the local tourism board, as well as some of the hotel people and the restaurant people. There is a pride for what happens on the Presidio, the care they've given it, the people involved from the early days. Amy Meyer, which was one of the people that are really, when the military let go of that area, really wanted to do something with it. And this is not your typical national park in many ways. It is open. It is free. You could literally walk from, the marina or downtown San Francisco or drive right in. There's public buses coming in there. There's no entry fees. There's over 3,000 residents who live there, many in the old historic homes that have been beautifully converted. So that's a lot of people. That's a community in its own right. But interestingly, which I did not know, there's over 200 organizations that have their offices on the Presidio. And the largest one is Lucasfilms. George Lucas is passionate about that area as well, and his main corporate offices are there. As a matter of fact, there's a Yoda statue from one of the movies. And did you know, this was a fun fact I learned, that in Star Trek, that the what is it called, Ryan? The home?
I think it's, now I'm drawing a blank. Yeah, the where Starfleet Command.
The Starfleet Command Center is the Presidio. Which I did not know.
When you say the Starfleet, I feel like we're going to space.
The original Star Trek and the modern Star Trek, their Starfleet Command Center was the Presidio.
Wow.
And so that was really cool. So there's a lot of organizations. There's a lot of people there. There's also 10 million visitors per year coming into it. And what struck me there, right from the first time I got there, is the amount of families and people coming in with their dogs and their children.
I saw your pictures. Oh, listen, the pictures that you sent us. By the way, you're an amazing photographer. I love your photos. And you took photos of proteas, like the sugar bush one. Like, thank you for that. I love protea plants. Like, they're my favorite flower. But one of them. I love all. But But did you know up the road from there is the George Lucas Scenic Drive? I don't know if it's a locals thing. Okay, so I don't know because I just remember getting lost. But it will take you to Point Reyes and Bolinas and all those cool places. So this is this connection, right? With
all this connection that is beyond just a national park. I mean, this is really they call it a trinity. You've got the Golden Gate Recreation Area tied to the National Park Service, tied to the Presidio Trust. So it really isn't just an arc. These three intermingle very closely. George Lucas, to this day, there's a free shuttle. So people can get into the park, by bus or by car, park their car, and there's a free shuttle that takes you around the property, which is supposedly financed, I was told, by George Lucas. So this connection is once you're there, you could walk for hours, you can bike, there's bikes to rent, but the gardens are stunning, and you've got, as you saw in the flowers, and what people will see is these gorgeous extensive flowers with these beautiful benches and children playing and dogs. One afternoon I was there was about 30 dogs arriving all at once on the main parade ground. So you've got the main parade ground, which is near the visitor center, and it's got all the old barrack buildings and the officer quarters. And that seems to be a big they have Adirondack chairs for people to sit in, picnic areas. And these dogs, it's like, you could tell it was, oh, look, hi, Stam. And people were like all, greeting the dogs if this was a regular. And they did not look local because most of the people came by car. So I bet they just came in from San Francisco and was having fun. But the amount of young children, the amount of just from old to young enjoying this park. And the whole time you have the backdrop of San Francisco Bay and the Golden Gate Bridge and these old historic buildings and this connection that their pride in maintaining the history to teach the lessons from those days and actually respecting the original people who live there, the Ohone people, there's this connection that they respect all aspects of it because they know they all integrate into each other. At one point, this was 5 separate forts. So it's a really interesting base as you drive around it, and you've got beautiful beaches. You can go watch people surf. There's one of the biggest playgrounds I've ever seen in my life there, also at the end of the tunnel tops. And you could walk down the waterfront. They took the old airfield where they used to bring in, during the Vietnam era, the burn unit for victims of that during the war in Vietnam. Our soldiers were all directly airlifted for Vietnam to Presidio, the burn hospital. The Letterman hospital was on campus there, and they would land on Crissy Field and then be brought immediately to the burn center there. But that Crissy Field now has been completely removed, and they've returned it to the marshland it used to be. So it's
wow, when I was there were sculptures.
No, well, now it's a marshland. It's gorgeous.
Wow.
And so they're really trying to bring back, really concerned about the environment. But then just down from there, you've got people surfing, and you've got the history. And then you've got, of course, one of the most powerful things I did when I was there was I went to the National Cemetery, which has over 30,000 of people who have served or their family members interned. And it's sitting up on this hillside, in the views of the Golden Gate Bridge and the bay are right there. It's a very powerful experience. Remind a little bit of the cemeteries over in France in the Normandy Beach area. This just powerful, this quiet resting place with these stunning views, which you don't usually see that often in cemeteries, views of this magnitude. But it was such a peaceful and wonderful resting place right near the main parade grounds. So there was something that integrated, and then you've got the art component of all this. And then there's a golf course, and there's 2 hotels on grounds. There are campgrounds as well. I was able to stay at both hotels. Since I was hosted, they wanted to have me experience each of them, which I absolutely loved. And there's a couple of, upscale restaurants there, and then there's lots of little eateries, a coffee shop, a Starbucks, that kind of, the Walt Disney Museum there has a little eatery as well. But I did have, and I don't know if we want to go into it now, but when I got there and I met first with the local tourism board, and they said, "Oh, what do you want to do for dinner?" I said, "I hadn't really thought about it." They said, "Oh, let's see if we can get you into one of the restaurants I really like." And without much notice, I got a reservation, and I really had no time because I had so much to do on my agenda that day to research the restaurant. And the restaurant is called Delita. It's been there it'll be 2 years in June. And it's what you'd call a modern Eastern Mediterranean. So a combination of really, food from various Armenia, Turkey, Israel, fascinating, mention. And when I got there, I was able to meet the 2 chefs, Sayat and Laura. They are a married couple who have an enormous, incredible repertoire of experiences in their life. But at the time, I didn't know any of that. I literally just sort of went cold and said, "Hi, I'm here." They recommended I come eat here. And I went for the next several hours in one of the most incredible meals I've ever had. And I talked to them several times.
You wrote a whole article on this one restaurant.
Yep. Food, Wine, Travel magazine. Actually, I pitched an article to them, and they were so impressed. They said, "Yeah, we'd love you to do it," and it is on their website. So I'm super excited about that. Because
link is in the episode notes, everyone, because this is like the epic meal.
Yeah, it was amazing.
See, this is what you don't expect, when we talk about national park adventures, that you don't expect, this is going to happen. But this, each park is unique. And this is an urban park too. Like what you're talking about qualifies as an urban park. And they say that we need urban parks every 8 to 10 minutes from everyone's living space. You need to have a park for health and wellness. So this, and good food. And gardens.
Oh my gosh. And actually a lot of the stuff they use, the flowers in their cocktails, they have an incredible cocktail menu. A lot of the herbs comes from the Presidio. Every morning he showed me pictures of that morning at 7 a.m. He was out there gathering these beautiful herbs he had shown me. And I was just like, wow. And they were so humble. I had no idea. And later I found out she actually 2 years ago was one of the top 4 candidates in the final round of Top Chef. They both have worked at multiple Michelin star restaurants, and they were absolutely the most kind, simply kind people. And I was just like, when I later read stuff about the restaurant after I left, I was like, oh my goodness, what an experience. So if people ever go in that direction, it definitely will need reservations. And this restaurant's received national recognition. It is mind blowing. And I had an amazing experience. As I did, there are 2 properties that are right near it are fascinating. There's the lodge and the inn. And the inn came first, and that's the old officer quarters right off to the corner of the parade grounds. And it's pretty much all suites. All the rooms have fireplace, or the suites have fireplaces. It's much more quiet in the corner by the forest. It's got a fire pit outside. I really enjoyed that one. That's the place you'd imagine reading a good book and just relaxing. As opposed to the lodge, which I also loved, was the old barracks. And it's actually right near the visitor center. And my room had a view of the Golden Gate Bridge and the bay. I was like, oh my goodness.
Ryan, are you getting a little upset right now like I am? I'm just saying.
I'm forced to talk about it, so.
I sent him so many pictures, especially at dinner. I was just like, look at this. And he's like,
oh my gosh, for the whole time you're like, look at this. And you're like,
yeah, these are always the type of places I like to find, like the things we don't really know about. And it's not a hidden gem, I would say, but it's things we didn't really 100% know about. And it has everything I would want. It's got the beautiful nature of, it's got water, it's got beaches, it's got hills and trees, it's got gardens, it has and then it has these old
all levels.
Yeah, the military bunkers and barracks.
What
and
ghost stories? What about ghosts? Does it have ghosts?
I don't know about it. I could look into that, but I'm sure
no
there
one
is.
mentioned that. There were barracks, so
they almost scare people off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I always look for a ghost story. So I'm just saying, if you guys keep traveling.
That would be an interesting, but no one mentioned that, and all the various, and I talked to the person who manages the 2 hotels, and they were both stunning. Both of them would be great. I would say the lodge was my favorite of the 2, but neither one both of them would be perfect. The campgrounds I didn't get to visit. I didn't make it there that day, but I hear they're really actually pretty cool, but obviously would need reservations for. But you're so close to San Francisco. You could either pop down out there for dinner or vice versa.
Go over the bridge.
On the property truly had me feel the property, the Presidio. I felt like I was connected to it when I was there, because you walk out and you walk on the parade grounds, you walk around in the evening. It's safe. It's beautiful. There's just this whole feel that I think if you can stay on site, it would be amazing. There is also a Mexican bistro there. All this is within walking distance. From the building I was in, the lodge, the first night, the next door was the Walt Disney Museum. Then there were some office buildings. And then at the end was the Delita. So everything is pretty much in that main post area. Very walkable. There's a YMCA.
I love that. I'm sorry, in San Francisco, I don't know, but I spent a lot of my time in the Tenderloin district. And this is because of the one-way streets and Lisa not understanding one-way streets. I've ended up in San Jose the last time we went there. No, I'm serious.
I believe it.
I couldn't get turned around. And I won't, there was a lot of bleep, bleep, bleeps in that one. That's right. And, I don't know. I ended up, I have done all of San Francisco just being me, just going and getting twirled around. But what I love is, when you travel a lot, I love to just park and be able to walk and explore like you're talking about. Being able to wake up, have a cup of coffee, take it easy and just walk and get your feel for the land. And you can imagine with all this history, I think there's got to be nuclear history there too, I think. I know there is up the coast for sure, but I'm not sure about the Presidio because there's a lot of things that were buried like along the coast, like from Cabrillo National Monument, San Diego, all the way up, even up into Crescent City. They had stuff going on because the Pacific Coast, the Pacific Theater. But that is isn't that cool to just kind of feel not that you had to go out into, I love San Francisco. It's like Cape Town.
I do too.
It's like
one of the most beautiful cities I think it's one of the most beautiful cities in the United States.
It is diverse, but if you don't
gem.
have to, you could just get out and walk. That's magic, man.
Yeah.
That's
And
cool.
it really helped me connect because I did it late at night. I did it during the day. I walked some of the trails as well. I mean, I never got into a bike. I just didn't have the time. There's so much to do there. And I was, saw so many people doing that and just driving around. You could drive around. It's 1,500 acres. I mean, this is a big property and there's multiple entrances and you've got the Baker Beach where I just went briefly to. There were quite a few people enjoying the beach and the water, that's sort of the rougher side of the ocean. And so it's just, there's so much to offer. And I feel like even though I was there for 2.5 days and it was, as I was leaving, it was time to go to the airport and I wanted to stop by the visitor center just to grab a couple more photos. And of course, right next to the visitor center is the Tunnel Top Gardens. And I next thing you know, I'm walking to the gardens again, taking more pictures because the flowers were even more beautiful 2 days later. And next thing you know, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get to the airport. And
so easily distracted.
This is so easily distracted.
So Ryan is not there to reel you in.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Joelle.
Well, we gotta go. She's like, I'm just taking pictures. I'll look back and she's like 3 blocks back and she's looking for me. I'm like, where did you stop? I kept looking back and that happens all the time.
I just want to say, everyone, go look at the podcast photo, the podcast art for this channel. And you understand this conversation right now.
So I almost was late because, San Francisco traffic is famous. And even though it was a Saturday, I was pushing it because, of course, getting to the city didn't go so well. And I was really nervous thinking, and those photos, honestly, are some of the best I took that weekend. And I was like, it was worth it. But nonetheless, I got myself a little bit anxious on the way to the airport and then missed my exit. You know how that happens. But I just
at least
wanted
you didn't
to
go to San
squeeze every
Jose.
minute. Yeah, I could have.
That's why that song was written. Do you know the way to San Jose? It's easy to end up there.
Very easy. Very
Which is
easy
not a bad
Mr.
thing.
Experts.
San Jose is pretty,
But I wanted to squeeze every moment of that place. I feel like I could have spent a week there and just truly absorb myself and still not be tired because there's this thing called the Wood Line which was an artist had done, Andy Goldsworthy, and I didn't get to hike that trail. I did go down there and take pictures of it, but I didn't go down it. And there were just a ton of people parked, clearly not from inside the park. They probably came from San Francisco, just walking this beautiful trail that's a combination of nature and art in one place. So there's so many different elements to this, and I did not visit the golf course. I'm not a golfer, but it would have been nice to get some photos, but I didn't. But that clearly, when I drove by it, a lot of people were going in there. And they have a lot of when I was there on Saturday, they had this huge food truck event. Huge food truck. They had a lot of food trucks and a ton of people. Clearly, the parking lot was full, so most of them came from probably outside. And it was just, again, this sense of community. This is not just the national park. This is a community that connects to San Francisco. And in talking to a lot of the people I talked to along there from people when I was in the wine and cheese, afternoon things, it was just like...
Wait, Ryan, did you hear how she just tried to skip over that there? Like, what?
I'm aware.
Each hotel had wine and cheese
thing. No. We don't skip over those. Those are crucial travel moments.
Oh, they are. But you really get a sense that the people of this city will fight hard for this place because it's so special. It's so unique. It's free. It's open to everybody. You don't have to have an entrance fee to get in there. And for a national park that's unique, but it's the views there. You just never tire. You'd be like, walk by the window, you'd have to stop and and when you talk to people who have worked there for years, and even like the people at the Delita restaurant, the staff I talked to there, as well as the chefs, they feel so privileged to be there. They consider this such an incredibly powerful, special place. And they really care about its history and its future in maintaining what they've worked so hard to build. And since it is self-sustaining, they're really relying on that. And the residents are strong, and the business organizations there are big organizations. So, but I was floored. And I have to say, I really look forward to going back because it has quite a story to tell. And I don't think I got that much of it. I really wish I could have spent more time in the various different forts. But I did go to the Officers Club, which is on the main post, which has a museum, which tells the history from the beginning, back the Ohone people to now, and the process with maps and also some of the dark history about the Japanese internments the Presidio's role in that. So it really brought a perspective of the whole history. They're trying very hard to preserve it. They actually had a display because the original people there had adobe homes back in the days of the Mexico Spanish and the Ohlone people. And they actually had a room that was built of those original kinds of adobe. And so they really are preserving all the way back because it's the story. It's the story of what makes this place so special. And I really was impressed in how they have made that story come alive, but how it connects to the community and the love for this place. And again, babies and people's strollers and large
doggies.
Groups. Yeah, lots and lots. I don't think I've ever seen this many dogs in one place.
Well, they look happy dogs.
They're very happy dogs.
California has happy cows and happy dogs.
I believe
that's, but this, now the Juan Bautista, did they talk a lot about that? Because when we went, they were redoing the visitor center and we went to this event and learned it was, El Polin was this garden they were just putting in and people's houses were there and they were doing it all native plants. So they had California lilac plants, which is native. And I remember that and seeing butterflies already coming in. And I think they had like a small marsh area, like you're talking about, they were getting into that. And I could see that there were community gardens where people were growing their own food, the residents, which is cool. But I really, that history was so important because they were talking about the Afro-Latino history.
Yes, when I talked to the park ranger, and actually she has some heritage, the original people that are there herself. So she was very passionate about that story and about that. And I had never heard of that. But
people told me I was full of it, actually. I've been told that to my face that there's no such thing. And I'm like, yes. So
yes, there is.
Because you got to think over 200 people walked from 600 miles south of Tucson. They walked all the way. They crossed in Yuma, Arizona, the lower part of the Colorado River. So it's called the Yuma Crossing. And it's, there's a state park and it's all part of the Yuma Crossing National Heritage Area. So there was this lower part where they could cross the water because at that point we had the mighty Colorado Let's Play Dam. So the water and this was pre all the agriculture and everything that's kind of sapping the Colorado River dry. And they crossed over there and then they walked through LA's part of it. We have the El Camino Real in California with all the missions, but I've been to a lot of those missions where they went through and Father Font, went with, Juan Bautista de Anza. So he was doing it in his dad's place. And these were all in walking. No one died except for a woman in childbirth at San Xavier del Bac, the mission in just south of Tucson, which is on the Tohono O'odham reservation. And so it just this multicultural history of people working together, and they worked with the different Native American tribes all the way throughout. And I have the Bible. I call it the Bible of the Juan Bautista de Anza expedition. It was written by his great grandson, sorry. And they do even Amtrak has, I don't know if they're still doing it today, but because I'm thinking post-COVID and everything, a lot changed. They have on Amtrak days where you're going on the Amtrak as part of the Anza expedition, the Anza Trail through our National Park Service. So our National Park Service includes these historic trails. Like as today, as we record, it's actually the beginning of the Pony Express Trail. Pony Express happened today.
Oh, really?
As we record this. Yes. And so, it's just fascinating. We have these historic trails that people don't realize are part of our National Park Service, but you could go out on an Amtrak and have a park ranger telling you what's going on. But I call it the Bible, and it goes through every step of the Juan Bautista de Anza Trail. And a lot of people have, even people with their own ranches and things have realized that they walked through their area. So they've dedicated places where they've opened it to the public now. There's so much more since this Bible has been put together. They even have music recordings from the different cultures along the way.
Wow.
This is the Bible. I'm telling you, I'm not being rude about the Bible. I'm just saying This is
No. They talked
and
about that. The ranger was very passionate about that whole history you're talking about right now. It was basically this path you're talking about led to the founding of San Francisco. This is the beginning of San Francisco way back when. And she talked about the Anza Trail. She talked about the original people. She talked about, again, everything you're mentioning. There's a very rich history, and they're very anxious to share it. And what's interesting, and there wasn't any real, I said, was there a book here that you have on just what the Presidio is about? She goes, no, we really don't. And I was talking to a retired ranger who was a volunteer that day, and he goes, I've been trying to write when I was a ranger here for decades. And he would love, and he was so excited. He just basically kept following me around because he had so much to share, so much in his brain. It was so cool. And as I was looking at things,
I
he was
spy
explaining.
a book in the future.
There you go.
I'm serious.
Did you know that the first flight, which is one thing they shared with me, the Rangers, the first flight to Hawaii from the mainland United States left from the Presidio. And it didn't make it all the way there because I think the engine failed not far from Hawaii, but it was a float plane. So it floated the rest of the way in, but it was the first flight from there. So it has a lot of little silly, funny history too. But there's so much to discover there. And it's not a bad flight for me. I'm going to come back and I'm going to be torn between my love for San Francisco and my absolutely captivation of the Presidio.
You can do it all because it's all connected, but you do kind of get into a different mode there. You're making me do a detour now because we go to Oregon, in the fall. So now I'm kind of going, that's a beautiful time to be in that area. Yeah, it's going to be your fault now. Ryan, are you feeling that are you wanting to go back there now that, she's making us all jealous?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like you said, it's for me, I love just walking, places like those old bunkers, those old gun emplacements, things like that. But I said, this has, 219 years of military history, and it's got all these little stories, like, those restaurants and those chefs and what they do. And you add all that with, everything that's happened from the founding to now, it's a reason, I say without the stories, it's just a place, with the stories, it's a destination. And, if you look at, could you imagine that city without this place? It's like taking away Central Park from New York. It's there for a reason. It has so much history and like some iconic reason that it was there. And it has a little bit of everything. It has food, it has the beaches, like I said, all this history. But it shows that it's not just a destination. It's not just a park or whatever. It is a community. It's got, I think 5,000 people living there. It's not
a little over 3,000.
Yeah. So it's not just
wow, that's a town.
It's not just some random little, some trees in the park, and it has this, and they've committed to really, I think they have at least 50% of all the buildings restored and remodeled and everything else. So they're actively trying to preserve that, and there's a reason, and everyone should learn about that reason and share it, and because we need. I
think we should all meet there and do our next podcast from there.
I
don't know how we'll make it with our schedules, but we're making the podcast happen, so that's cool.
There
we go. We should all meet there, but that would be a cool spot. I think about 3,000 people. We lived in a town that had 3,500 people, and that was including the surrounding area. So it's like, wow. I love this. Everyone, the links are in the episode notes for Joelle's articles, 3 places, their website, wandererscompass.com, nationalparktraveling.com, and FWT magazine. I think it is FWTmagazine.com. All of that is in the episode notes for you to follow up and check this out. We'll also put a link for the Presidio itself so you can go directly there. But it is, even if you're in San Francisco, for a vacation, go check it out. It is gorgeous. And if you want those iconic photos of the Golden Gate Bridge, this is one of those places to go to, right? Wouldn't you say, Joelle, for the photos?
It is, especially from the tunnel tops. It's perfect because you've got the flowers and the park setting, and then you've got the bay, Alcatraz, and the Golden Gate Bridge right there in front of you. So it is absolutely, even if you can only go for an hour, it is well worth it if all you do is spend time walking the tunnel tops.
And Alcatraz is a whole other thing now. That's a whole story. Oh boy, let's don't get us all started on everything, but I love it. I love it. Well, you guys, thank you so much, everyone. This is episode number 2, episode number 3. Joelle, where are we going for episode 3?
We are going to do for our June podcast, we are going to talk about castles, and we're going to talk specifically about Edinburgh Castle. So we're super excited about that because we did that several years ago on our first trip to Scotland, and we've gone back again in recent years, and we just can't get enough of this castle. The history, the feel of it, just the layout, the multiple ways to explore it, and of course the stunning views when you're on the top, because it literally overlooks all of Edinburgh, which is also one of our favorite cities overseas. So this one we're super excited to pull together because that was one of the castles that absolutely we could not be more impressed with.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I went there as a little girl, and I did all the castles in England, Scotland, and Wales.
Wow.
And but I was little, right? I was like maybe 7, I think. But I had this thing, and that's where I was collecting postcards. I think we talked about that the first podcast chat we did together. But I remember going to Edinburgh and going, okay, wait a minute. Like, this is serious. This is for real big. I remember that going like, I felt like a little speck, when you're a little kid, you're like, whoa, it's like a city, man. It's a whole
crazy.
Other world. Can't wait for that. Thank you both. Everyone, wandererscompass.com. Stay tuned. Follow them on their website for their adventures and, Warrior Wednesdays. That's every Wednesday that you do Warrior Wednesdays on social media? Every Wednesday, follow that. And you do castle podcasts as well, not podcasts, posts as well on social media. But it's so much fun. I've started following you guys. I'm having a blast wherever you go. So,
thank you, Lisa.
In the meantime, they're going to Turkey. So, cool. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Wanderer's Compass Travel Podcast. New episodes air every second Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. You can follow the show at bigblendradio.com and keep up with Joelle and Ryan's adventures at wandererscompass.com.